Hey guys, it's me, Berendt, back with another video. So as you guys know, when I went to Portland last month, I went to the big famous bookstore that they have there, Powell, City of Books. And a lot of you guys said you wanted a book haul video on the books that I bought. So I'm finally doing my Powell's City of Books book haul video. I didn't buy that many books, so it's probably going to be a short video, but I'm going to show you guys the books that I bought there, and I'm also going to show you guys one more book that I did not buy at Powell's. I actually bought it not last week, but the week before that, but I think you guys will, this damn shadow of this unicorn curl, sorry, but I think you guys will appreciate this last book that I bought a lot, so I'm going to save that one for last. So we're going to start with my Powell's. So the first book that I wanted to show you guys was Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. I have never read this book. This book is written by a white author, but this is like one of those books that people say that you have to read. It's nonfiction, and it's about a murder in Savannah, and it talks a lot about race relations, and culture and American Southern culture and a lot of the stuff that's kind of wrapped up in that. And everyone just says that this is one of those books, especially if you're interested in like race relations and stuff like that, that you kind of like have to read. So they had this book there for like $2. I was going to say it was like $1. This book retails for $25 and I got it for $2. So I was just like, oh, whatever. So I'm going to read you guys from the inside flat. Shots rang out in Savannah's grandest mansion in the misty early morning hours of May 2nd, 1981. Was it murder or self-defense? For nearly a decade, the shooting and its aftermath reverberated throughout this hauntingly beautiful city of moss-hung oaks and shaded squares. John Berendt's sharply observed, suspenseful, and witty narrative reads like a thoroughly engrossing novel, and yet it is a work of nonfiction. Berendt skillfully interweaves, if you guys know how to pronounce that, please correct me, interweaves, freaking emails, a hugely entertaining first-person account of life in this isolated remnant of the Old South with the unpredictable twists and turns of a landmark murder case. It is a spellbinding story peopled by a gallery of remarkable characters. The well-bred society ladies of the Married Women's Card Club, the turbulent young redneck gigolo, the fact that someone is even like described as a redneck in the book flap, I feel like bodes well for this book. The hapless recluse who owns a bottle of poison so powerful it could kill every man, woman, and child in Savannah. The aging and profane Southern belle who is the soul of pampered self-absorption. The uproariously funny black drag queen. The sweet-talking piano-playing con artist. Young blacks dancing the minuet at the Black Debutante Ball. And Minerva, the voodoo priestess who works her magic in the graveyard at midnight. These and other Savannians act as a Greek chorus, with Berendt revealing the alliances, hostilities, and intrigues that thrive in a town where everyone knows everyone else. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, a Savannah story, is a sublime and seductive reading experience. Yeah, this is a white guy. It's a white guy. But I still want to read it. So I'm going to read this. Have any of you read this, or any of you guys from Savannah? My mom and my stepdad got married in Savannah in August. Oh my God, and it was so hot. It was so hot. It was so hot. We thought we were going to die. It was so hot that 5 minutes into the ceremony, my mother took her shoes off and stood there barefoot. She was just like, I can't take this fucking heat. So, but Savannah was like really, really beautiful. They have a really great art school there. SCAD, I think it's called. And again, this is just one of those books that everyone says you should read, even though all the books that everyone says you should read are 9 times out of 10 by white authors, and especially white male authors, white men. But I do want to read this one because I've heard that this one's actually pretty good with the race relations. So, and it was only $2. So, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, I bought this. Now, we're going to move to something light. I bought this, Richelle Mead, Stormborn. This is fantasy. I was gonna say action, but it's fantasy. I'm gonna read you guys the blurb. Eugenie Markham is a powerful shaman who does a brisk trade banishing spirits and fae who cross into the mortal world. As soon as I read that first sentence, I was like, put this book in my little cart. Mercenary, yes, but a girl's gotta eat. Her most recent case, however, is enough to ruin her appetite. Hired to find a teenager who has been taken to the other world, Eugenie comes face to face with a startling prophecy. One that uncovers dark secrets about her past and claims that Eugenie's firstborn will threaten the future of the world as we know it. Now Eugenie is a hot target for every ambitious demon and otherworldly ne'er-do-well, and the ones who don't want to knock her up want her dead. Eugenie handles a Glock as smoothly as she wields a wand, but she needs some formidable allies for a job like this. She finds them in Dorian, a seductive fairy king with a taste for bondage, and Keo, a gorgeous shapeshifter who redefines animal attraction. I was like, what? The mix of supernatural, mystery, and romance is great fun. Yeah, it's like supernatural, mystery, romance, fantasy, thriller, all the good stuff. Stormborn, all the stuff that I like. I'm super excited about reading this. My kind of book, great characters, dark worlds, and just the right touch of humor. Like a gun and a magic wand, sign me up. Bought that. I bought The Ballad of Beta 2 by Samuel R. Delany. Samuel R. Delany is pretty much widely recognized as one of the first mainstream Black science fiction writers, if not the first. He said publicly that he hates being described as the first because he says Black people have been writing books and have been writing science fiction and speculative fiction forever. We just didn't get the opportunities, same as white people, to get published and have our work widely read and get the same type of critical acclaim. But Samuel R. Delany did receive that critical acclaim, and he's written books that have come to be known as classics, and he's like won all these like really prestigious science fiction awards, and a lot of the people know him as like that Black sci-fi guy, like how people know like Octavia Butler for like as like the Black sci-fi like writer. People know Samuel R. Delany the same way. So I bought this one, The Ballad of Beta 2. Anthropology student Joneni was sent out on a quest he didn't want to find the meaning of the Ballad of Beta 2. For the ballad was the only clue that even hinted at what had happened to spaceship Beta 2's missing crew of galactic colonists. Joneni's search for the answer led him on a course of indescribable terror, and there's a sticker here that I can't see what else it says, and to a miraculous understanding. That's what it says. So if you like sci-fi and you want to read more sci-fi authors, I know in my last book haul video, I suggested Walter Mosley. I had bought one of his sci-fi books. Samuel R. Delany, look him up also if you're into that kind of thing. Centuries ago, the Starfolk had left Earth on 12 spaceships on a generations-long mission to colonize the distant stars. 10 of the ships had reached their destination. 2 had failed, and nobody in the 100 years since the disaster had the slightest inkling of what had happened. Joneni, a student of galactic anthropology, was assigned the problem. It had seemed routine to him. Just some faster-than-light travel to the 2 wrecked ships, a bit of poking around, and then writing up his findings. But he was ill-prepared for what he found in space at the site of the 2 ancient wrecks. So it kind of also sounds like The Expanse, which I've been watching because so many people have been suggesting it to me, and I'm like hooked. I'm like, Expanse, The Expanse, The Expanse, The Expanse, The Expanse. So this kind of reminds me of the plot of The Expanse. If you guys don't watch The Expanse, please feel free to check it out. It has a really great diverse cast, has a really interesting story. They recently put it on Hulu. I think it comes on Sci-Fi. And they're putting all the sci-fi shows. They put The Magicians, The Expanse, all kinds of stuff. So the next book that I bought, Inner City Blues by Paula Woods. This is like a mystery crime fiction, which you guys know I'm also really into. This bookstore, Powell's, They have, if you guys follow me on social media, on Snapchat, and Instagram, you probably saw when I was there. At this bookstore, okay, how do I describe it? So it's like a regular bookstore in the sense that you have like your genres, right? So you have like your mystery, your crime thriller, fiction, nonfiction, literature, sci-fi, whatever. But then on the bookstores, they have these tags, and the tags say writer of color. They say WOC, writer of color, whenever it's a book by a writer of color. So they don't have the writers of color like in their own little like section, like African American, even though they do have like an African American section as well. But, excuse me, the genre fiction, like the crime and stuff like that, they just have tags that say this is a writer of color. And then it has like a little description under, so you know if it's like a black person or like an East Asian person or whatever. So that was actually how I picked up this book, was because it had the writer of color tag on it, Paula L. Woods. Inner City Blues is a Charlotte Justice novel. This is the first in a series. So if I like this one, I'm probably going to keep on moving forward with the series. So as an African-American woman in the predominantly white male LAPD, homicide detective Charlotte Justice knows about heat, but nothing like the fires and riots that now engulf Los Angeles. 48 hours into the maelstrom, a prominent black doctor is mistaken for a car thief. Charlotte quickly diffuses the violent confrontation, saving Dr. Lance Mitchell from a potentially savage beating by LA's finest. But that's just the corner of a more ominous picture. For the body of Cinque Lewis is found nearby with the good doctor's wallet beneath it. A one-time radical, Lewis murdered Charlotte's husband and baby girl 13 years ago, then dropped out of sight. Defying the LAPD hierarchy, Charlotte sets out to uncover the twisted truth connecting Mitchell and Lewis. But by reliving the tragic past, she may be forced to repeat it. So I love books like this. I love, like, crime, again, mystery, thrillers, actions. So the fact that the lead of this is a black woman, a black American woman, it was really, really, really exciting for me because most of these types of books, of course, are led by men. And it's also a black woman author. So I was really excited to pick this up and buy it. And again, if I like this one, I will probably continue on with this series. So Paula L. Woods, Inner City Blues, bought that. There are some more books in here than I thought. I thought I only bought 4 books. The lie detector test determined that was a lie. My last book, you guys know. Y'all know I've been reading the cheesy romances. I've just really been into the cheesy romances as a way to just like turn my fucking brain off when like all this shit that's like going on feels like it's like overwhelming me or like getting to be too much. Like my favorite thing to do nowadays is to just open up a fucking cheesy romance. I bought all those Beverly Jenkins books. I just started a new one the other day. And I saw this one in the romance section of Powell's, and it also had a writer of color tag, and Christopher. Deadly Desires. After a desperate struggle to sever ties with her husband, Kira Gregory is suddenly a free woman. She can start a new life without fear, but Kira's newfound independence seems too good to be true, and it is. And it says, how can you plan a future when you can't outrun your past? And it's basically just about, leaving your shitty husband and the nigga trying to find you. And she ends up falling in love with the cop. And I'm sure it is very, very, very cheesy. And I'm sure I'm going to love every second of it. It is like, these romances are like junk food for my brain. I grew up reading a lot of cheesy romances, which I've mentioned before because my grandmother read a lot of them. And I just really have not, like, lost my taste for them. Like, I can read, like, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, nonfiction, and then I can read, like, some sci-fi, like, sci-fi fantasy shit, and, like, some hard sci-fi shit, and then, like, some thriller shit, and then, like, some cheesy fucking romance. Just all things that can, like, entertain my brain in different ways. So, Deadly Desires. So, these are all the books that I bought at Powell's bookstore. And the last book that I wanted to show you guys was Dutchman and the Slave. Dutchman and the Slave, which is a very famous series of plays by LeRoi Jones, who you might know as Amiri Baraka, who is a writer. He wrote poetry. drama, he wrote essays, he wrote plays, he wrote fiction, he wrote music criticism, he wrote tons of books and poetry books, and he was a teacher. He taught at the collegiate level at tons of universities. Amiri Baraka died in 2013 or 14, and he talked a lot about racism, he talked a lot about race relations, he talked a lot about Black liberation, and this is one of his most famous works, is Dutchman and the Slave. And I picked these up because I have not read them, and I mentioned to you guys that I want to get more into reading plays. I mentioned in my last book haul video. And so one of my friends was like, well, if you want to get more into reading plays, especially plays by Black authors, then you have to read Dutchman and the Slave by Amiri Baraka. And this is a very old edition. As you guys can see, it says LeRoi Jones. And I'm going to read you the back. Centered squarely on the Negro-white conflict, both Dutchman and the Slave, which are the two plays, Dutchman and the Slave, are literally shocking plays in ideas and language and honest anger. They illuminate as with a flash of lightning a deadly serious problem, and they bring an eloquent and exceptionally powerful voice to the American theater. Dutchman opened in New York City on March 24, 1964, to perhaps the most excited acclaim ever accorded an off-Broadway production, and shortly after received the Village Voice's Obie Award. The Slave, which was produced off-Broadway the following fall, continues to be the subject of heated controversy. LeRoi Jones was born in Newark, New Jersey in 1934. His published books include Blues People, preface to a 20-volume suicide note, The System of Dante's Hell, and Home. And again, this is old because it says he now lives in Harlem, where he directs the Black Arts Repertory Theater School, when he died a few years ago. So I also bought this, Dutchman and the Slave. Let me open up a little something and read a little something. Let's see. Amiri Baraka. Amiri Baraka, previously known as LeRoi Jones, was an African-American writer of poetry, drama, fiction, essays, and music criticism. He was the author of numerous books of poetry and taught at several universities, including the State University of New York at Buffalo and the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He received the PEN Open Book Award, previously known as the Beyond the Margins Award, in 2008 for Tales of the Out and Gone. Baraka's career spanned nearly 50 years, and his themes range from Black liberation to white racism. Some poems that are always associated with him are The Music, Reflection on Jazz and Blues, The Book of Monk, and New Music, New Poetry, works that draw on topics from the worlds of society, music, and literature. Baraka's poetry and writing have attracted high praise, and in the African American community, some compare Baraka to James Baldwin and recognize him as one of the most respected and most widely published Black writers of his generation. Regardless of viewpoint, Baraka's plays, poetry, and essays have been defining texts for African American culture. Baraka's brief tenure as Poet Laureate of New Jersey involved controversy over a public reading of his poem, Somebody Blew Up America. This, I think, will be the first thing that I've read by Amiri Baraka. I'm familiar with him and his work. The idea of him and his work. But I don't think I've ever read... I think I might have read or seen Someone Blew Up America, but not enough to be, that familiar with it. So this was recommended to me, so I'm also going to read this. So these are all my books for my book haul. Have you guys read any of these books? Are any of you guys from Savannah? Are any of you guys familiar with this? And didn't they make a movie about? I believe they made a movie also, which I also haven't seen clearly. What do you guys think of Amiri Baraka? I know some people say he was homophobic and a misogynist, which, if true, wouldn't really surprise me. But I'm going to read this with an open mind, and you guys can let me know what you think in the comments. As always, but these are all the books that I bought. I'm going to try and find as many links as I possibly can. Again, I did buy these at a used bookstore, and sometimes you do run the risk when you buy things from used bookstores of buying things that are out of print because, people donate their old books, sell their old books. But I'm really excited about these. Really excited to bring you this video so now you guys know what I bought at Powell's. Of course, let me know what you guys think as always in the comments. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.